There's a verse in the Bible that most people quote, but almost nobody actually understands. It doesn't sound soft. It doesn't sound safe. It doesn't fit the comfortable version of faith many have been taught. It sounds like a warning wrapped in a command. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Wise as serpents, not lions, not angels, not kings, serpents, the very symbol of deception in the beginning, the same creature that walked into the garden and rewrote reality with a single conversation. So, why would Jesus tell his followers to be like that? Unless the lesson isn't about becoming like the serpent, but about understanding how the serpent operates. The real setting. You are not in a safe world. Before you even get to serpents and doves, you have to understand the first part of the verse. In Gospel of Matthew 10, verse 16, Jesus says, "Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves." That's not poetic imagery meant to sound dramatic. That's a reality check. You are not being sent into a world that is neutral. You are not being sent into a world that is safe. You are not being sent into a world that is automatically aligned with truth. You are being sent into a world where predators exist. Wolves don't debate sheep. They don't negotiate terms. They don't sit down and reason things out. They study, they wait, they strike. And sheep are not built for combat. They are built for trust. So Jesus is telling you something uncomfortable right from the start. You are vulnerable by design in a world that is not. Let that sink in. Because if you misunderstand the environment, you will misjudge the danger. And if you misjudge the danger, you will not prepare for it. The problem with just be nice. Now here's where things get real. A lot of people have been taught a version of faith that sounds like this. Just be kind. Just love everyone. Don't question. Don't overthink. And on the surface, that sounds right. But here's the problem. Kindness without awareness becomes vulnerability. If you remove discernment from a person, you don't make them more spiritual. You make them easier to manipulate. Because now, every smooth talker sounds sincere, every polished message sounds true, every authority sounds trustworthy. That's not strength, that's exposure. Jesus never told his followers to walk through the world blind. He told them exactly what they were walking into, and then gave them the tools to navigate it. The first serpent. Now go back to the first appearance of the serpent in book of Genesis 3 verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. That word subtle is everything. It means shrewd, observant, calculated, strategic. The serpent wasn't the strongest creature in the garden. It didn't overpower Eve. It didn't force anything. It outthought her. That's the difference. And notice how it operates. It doesn't start with a command, it starts with a question. Yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? That's not confrontation, that's infiltration. It introduces doubt without looking like doubt. It reframes truth without outright denying it. It moves slowly, carefully, precisely. And before Eve realizes what's happening, her perspective has shifted. That's how deception works. Not through force, but through influence. The war for your mind started in the garden. Here's something most people miss. The first battle in the Bible was not physical. It was mental. No weapons, no violence, no visible attack, just words. And those words changed everything. Because once Eve accepted the altered perspective, the action followed naturally. That's how influence works. Change the way someone sees something, and you change what they do next. So when Jesus says wise as serpents, he's pointing back to that level of awareness. Not the corruption, not the deception, but the understanding of how influence operates. Why Jesus uses this exact comparison. This is where people get uncomfortable, because they don't want to associate anything good with a serpent. But Jesus isn't praising the serpent, he's exposing a reality. The enemy in the garden didn't win because it was powerful. It won because it was perceptive. It understood timing, psychology, language, influence. And if you don't understand those things, you are at a disadvantage. So Jesus is saying, don't be ignorant of how deception works, because ignorance is not purity. Ignorance is vulnerability. Discernment versus deception. Now here's the line that separates everything. The serpent used awareness to deceive. You are called to use awareness to discern. Same skill, different purpose. One distorts truth, the other protects truth. And if you don't understand that difference, you will either stay naive and get misled or become manipulative and lose your integrity. That's why the second half of the verse matters so much. Jesus doesn't stop at serpents. He immediately adds, and harmless as doves. This is the safeguard, because awareness without morality becomes manipulation. A dove represents innocence, peace, purity. So the full command is this: be aware of how deception works, but do not become deceptive. Be sharp, but stay clean. Be perceptive, but remain pure in your actions. This is controlled awareness, not corrupted intelligence. Jesus himself lived this out. Watch how Jesus operates. When people tried to trap him, he never walked into it blindly. They asked him loaded questions, and he saw the trap instantly. Should we pay taxes to Caesar? That's not a simple question, that's a setup. Answer yes, you look compromised. Answer no, you look rebellious. But Jesus doesn't take the bait. He reframes the entire situation. Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. That's strategic thinking. That's seeing the move before it happens. That's being wise as a serpent. But he never used that awareness to manipulate or exploit people. That's being harmless as a dove. The same game is still being played. Now bring this into today. Do you really think deception stopped in Genesis? Because today, it doesn't come through a single conversation in a garden. It comes through systems, messaging, authority, repetition. It comes dressed up as truth, progress, safety, consensus. And if you're not discerning, you don't question it, you absorb it. That's how influence works now. Quiet, consistent, subtle, just like the serpent. Why most people don't see it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't see deception because they're not looking for it. They assume good intentions, honest messaging, clear communication. But deception doesn't announce itself. It blends in. It sounds reasonable. It feels logical. It aligns just enough with truth to pass as truth. That's why discernment is necessary. Now, this is important. Being wise as serpents does not mean distrust everyone, assume everything is false, live in fear. That's not wisdom. That's imbalance. Discernment is calm awareness. It's the ability to evaluate what you hear, recognize patterns, notice inconsistencies, test ideas before accepting them. It's clarity without paranoia. The cost of ignoring this command. What happens if you ignore this? You stay good, but unaware. And unaware people are easy targets. They believe what sounds right, follow what feels right, trust what appears right. But appearance can be manufactured. That's the danger. Eve didn't fall because she was evil. She fell because she didn't recognize what was happening. So most people fall into one of two extremes. Naivety, trust everything, question nothing. Result, you get misled. Cynicism, trust nothing, assume everything is manipulation. Result, you lose peace. But Jesus calls for a third path, awareness with integrity. Not blind, not hardened, balanced. Being wise as serpents means listening more than reacting, thinking before responding, recognizing pressure tactics, not being easily swayed. Being harmless as doves means staying honest, not manipulating others, acting with integrity, keeping your motives clean. This is strength under control. So now you see it. This wasn't poetic fluff. This was a survival command. In Gospel of Matthew 10:16, Jesus didn't say be comfortable. He didn't say be liked. He didn't say be naive and hope for the best. He said be wise, be aware, be discerning, because you are not walking through a harmless world. You are walking through a battlefield where truth is questioned, where perception is shaped, and where deception doesn't come dressed like a lie. It comes dressed like something that almost sounds right. And if you don't see it, you don't resist it, you absorb it. That's how it works. Quiet, subtle, strategic, just like the serpent in Book of Genesis. But here's the line most people miss. You're not called to become like the serpent, you're called to understand it. So it never works on you again. That's the difference. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize the pattern, you stop falling for it. And once you stop falling for it, you start walking differently. You start listening differently. You start thinking differently. You start questioning what once felt obvious, not out of fear, but out of clarity. And at the same time, you don't lose your heart. You don't become cold. You don't become manipulative. You don't become what you're trying to avoid. Because you are still called to be Harmless as doves, pure in your actions, clean in your intentions, grounded in truth. That's the balance. And very few people ever find it. They either stay blind or they become bitter. But the path Jesus gave is different. Eyes open, heart clean, mind sharp. So the real question is this: are you moving through this world aware of what's happening around you? Or are you still walking straight into traps you were warned about from the beginning? Because the difference between being misled and standing firm is not intelligence, it's discernment. And discernment is exactly what you were commanded to have. If this opened your eyes, then you already know what to do. Subscribe to Rock Solid TV for more content that challenges what you've been told and exposes what most people never question. If you would like to help support Rock Solid TV, you can do so by clicking the link below and becoming a member. Until next time, stay aware, stay grounded, and don't just believe everything you hear. Learn to see through it.